Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jeff Show. I'm Jeff. This is my show where I talk about things that I like to talk about. Do a lot of different shows on this channel. That is the Frumest brand that I'm trying to build and expand. Is that why it didn't said? Oh no, it's not going to let me. I used 101% of my storage on Mega. I just recorded an unboxing video, and I guess I need to delete some files. So that stinks. I don't know if I could say that. In any case, so yesterday we talked about this really extreme horror film called Megan is Missing. And now we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. We've been working our way through this book right here called The Complete History of the Return of the Living Dead. And we're right now in the middle of Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Let's get the book cam in here. I don't have a lot of time because I can hear my little daughter stirring. And when she stirs, I can no longer broadcast. Okay, there we go. We're here. We're in. So we already looked at those pages. What we did not look at, however, is here. I'm going to actually read this little paragraph here because this is interesting. This is what Brian Yuzna has to say about the military industrial complex set that they use. This is where they, this top part right here, this is the facility. And as you can see, and I remember when I first watched this film, I was like, oh, wow, they have a lockdown airtight facility that allows them to use trioxin in a more safe environment without opening, allowing the trioxin to escape into the atmosphere. That's a pretty smart way to go about things. This is what Brian Yuzna, the writer-director, says. In order to create, no, not writer, just director. In order to create a research facility within our very limited art department budget, Tony designed modular walls. So they used modular walls. We talked about this last week a little bit, actually, that could be reconfigured and repainted to represent different parts of the facility. You would be surprised how few of these walls we actually had. I'm not surprised at all. There was enough for one hallway with a turn at either end and one room. I imagine that these modular walls had been designed by the military to helicopter in overseas battlefields and were made out of metal, very secure and strong. Here they are used in an underground facility to keep this dangerous experiment from getting out. What's going on, Rue? Welcome. We're talking once again about Return of the Living Dead 3. Rue saw Megan is Missing last night, and he was brutalized by his experience. But that's another topic for another day. I told you. That barrel scene, right? Holy crap! Holy hell! Spoilers. So there you go. So these were all miniatures, and you could tell what's a miniature shot and what's not, but they work seamlessly. It's really, really great. I miss this stuff, man. This is like the best part of movie making. This is what I mean when I say being a filmmaker is like being a magician. You get to trick people. You trick people with what they see. And then here is the Riverman's apartment, and this is in a subterranean sewer-like tunnel. He lives in the sewers of the LA River, hoarding all manner of interesting things, probably things that get thrown into the river and then wash up here. If this was a 2.5-hour sprawling epic and they were packing it full to the gills with character and story, I'd imagine that we'd have more. We've learned more about the Riverman's home away from home. And then this is outside of his house. This is his front lawn, in a matter of speaking, which was another set that was built. Outside the Riverman's lair, it is here where Julie is first revealed in all of her zombie S&M gore, is what the description says. And again, just reviewing these stills makes me want to watch the film. I just get a hankering for it. Again, it's a film that I don't watch it all the time, but because it kind of gives, man, it's a heavy film for me to watch. emotionally. It's because it's so bleak. It's so nihilistic. Like I need to put something on really positive after I watch this because it just makes me like hate the world. But at the same time, it's like a drug, man. Movies can be like drugs. You take them to feel a certain way in the same way that music is like a drug. You know, I put on a song to elicit a feeling or to take me back to a certain time in my life. And Return of the Living Dead Part 3 is very much like that for me, as is Return of the Living Dead Part 1, but really Part 3. So I really have to be in the right kind of headspace to want to watch this film, and just going through the pictures makes me want to revel in the awe of its production and how great it really is. Here is the Tarman zombie. After it, so what happens to this Tarman zombie? And again, as I said last time, I really do not like this Tarman zombie. He's my least favorite of the three in this original trilogy of films. And his face has fused to the side of his body, and after Kurt pushes him down because he comes out of the barrel, he's in the barrel with the trioxin gas that's used to revive Julie. And after he gets revived, after Julie gets revived, this Tarman zombie comes back to life because Kurt doesn't realize that there's a zombie in there and that it's going to come out. We kind of know. And I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunity. They could have done so much more. I guess when you think about it, it's sort of like the same. They're trying to do a variation of the Tarman's face melting off in the opening credits of Return of the Living Dead. That's how awesome Return of the Living Dead is. The opening credits, a zombie's face melts off in the opening credits of Return of the Living Dead. Like, think about that. Think about like what film opens their film with a zombie's face melting off like that. Dawn of the Dead doesn't open like that. I guess Night of the Living Dead kind of opens with something exciting. Day of the Dead doesn't open with anything like that. Literally, what is it? In like the first 10 minutes, a zombie's face melts off. It's kind of insane. Brian Yusna says, in the kind of movies I like, FX are almost an essential and are an important imaginative element in the style and content of the movie. I would say that is so true to not only his taste, but I mean, that's reflected in the type of work that Brian Yusna does, if you're familiar with his films. And he knocks it out of the park, man. So here you can see, this is a close-up of the opening Ballistic zombie, which is played by a homeless man named Clarence. And there's the target that's been painted on his head. And look, his eyes are all cloudy. You don't see that in the previous two films. They do a terrific job of making Frank and Freddy look really dead towards the end. But they, I don't know, they didn't do anything with the eyes, and they could have made the eyes milkier. Oh, sorry. I'm right outside a window of my house. I get to see all the happenings and doings in front of my house. And here he's biting Dr. Hickox's fingers off. For some reason, Dr. Hickox thinks it's a smart idea to put his hand in the mouth of a recently frozen reanimated zombie. Christopher Laundry says there was a total of 5 makeup supervisors doing prosthetics, plus the regular makeup department, because there are so many gags in this film that there's a bunch of different departments. I remember this from the commentary. They were giving out portions of the movie, which they do. I mean, this happens all the time. They had hired a bunch of different houses to handle the effects. And, it's kind of funny. You would think that because Screaming Mad George did the effects. He didn't do the effects for this. You would think that Screaming Mad George did the effects for Society and Bride of Reanimator. You think he would have done some of the effects for Return of the Living Dead 3. And in that way, if I'm going to get some surreal, gory, crazy effects, I want them to come from Screaming Mad George. Here's Clarence Epperson in the behind-the-scenes footage of Return of the Living Dead 3. Epperson was so thin and gaunt that he required very little makeup for his role as the test cadaver. And I mean, he is just so effective in this role. Unbelievable. Just the way that they hook him up. It just works, man. One of the most effective zombies in the film, in my opinion, way more so than the Tarman barrel zombie. But I guess at the end of the day, the real star, I mean, another way that this film sort of turned everything on its head. Yes, Frank and Freddy become zombies, but they're not zombies to start. I feel like Julie Walker she is the Tarman of this thing. She is the featured zombie in the same way that she's as much trash being zombified. We spoke about that last week, that she's like trash. It's Trash's story if Trash had a backstory and she was more of a girl next door type, and if she we sort of saw things from her point of view getting reanimated. But Julie Walker is also very much like the Tarman too of the situation, even though you have a Tarman here. So here you can see he's been fused, and he's not slimy enough. It doesn't work, man. He's just so goofy. Those eyeballs are so goofy, and it's funny because the Tarman has pretty goofy eyeballs, but they just work for the Tarman. They don't work for this guy. There's his skull. So at a certain point, the performer goes from having his head there to them just having like a fake head. There's the sculpt for the body. Various stages in the construction of Wayne Tuth's. They call him a barrel zombie. They don't even call it the Tarman. He wanted to steer away from the Tarman look of Return of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead 2, but still went for the EC Comics look of Dan O'Bannon's original film. I guess that's kind of true. It just doesn't work in the same way, if I'm being honest. So here's Clarence Epperson with electrician Jason Santelli and the brother of the gaffer, Adam Santelli. So these guys had a good time with Clarence, who was a homeless guy until he, got picked up outside of an airport and became a movie star. Clarence Epperson was someone that Tom Rainon had brought to the production. Rainon. But I don't know how he found him. Clarence was kind of an odd guy, but very easygoing and very pleasant to work with. How about that? And look at his teeth, man. I mean, he's just perfect for this role, right? I mean, really, truly. I mean, if you're going to cast zombies, they shouldn't be uniform. They have to be different sizes and different shapes from all walks of life. And Clarence really fit the bill here. And here's some behind-the-scenes footage. You can see some of the behind-the-scenes footage in the extra features. The best part about the More Brains documentary, that is also, I believe, Gary Smart had something to do with that as well. The best part is they have two featurettes about the making of Return of the Living Dead Part 2 and Part 3. They're both a half hour long. I believe the Part 3 one is actually on the Vestron disc, and it's the closest thing we're ever going to get to a documentary about Return of the Living Dead Part 3. In a world where you have documentaries about like Jason Goes to Hell, like who wants a documentary about Jason Goes to Hell? You would think that there would be a documentary about Return of the Living Dead Part 3. So here they are. They're shooting the thing. These are behind the scene. This is behind the scenes footage of the dummy used for Clarence Epperson's freeze gun head. So that's actually, and you can see, I didn't notice that before. You can see his shoulder it's cut off before the shoulder. So that's actually a dummy. And that's what they used to shot the bullet into the brain right there. And these are also scenes of Brian Usna's directing the test room set. Right. Yeah. So that's what it looked like when they were shooting. So cool to see behind the scenes. It kind of blows my mind. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that. And it's just so cool. Look at this. It's just like, once again, you got that oral history testimony of how they did it, and it's chopped up. It's basically, this is like a documentary in audio form, if you think about it. If you think about each one of these as a talking head, that's what you're getting. So it's like the book version of More Brains, except it's way more detailed with way more information from way more people. So this is the props assistant, Jason Nunes, and friends posing with Santos, the zombie prop. So Santos is the leader of the Latin gang, and he gets his head ripped out through his back. His spine comes out. I guess when Glenn Danzig was rewriting Feline Nursery to become the song Spinal Remains, he was talking about that guy right there, if you ask me. So Rue says this is the best looking zombie in the film. You might be right in the sense that when his head gets back up, because he's kind of like this weird sort of Muppet situation where he's got like this snaking sort of spinal remaining head that he's like an ostrich. It's almost like he becomes like this ostrich or something. It's really sort of crazy. and it just works. That head is something else, man, and that's so gory. And here is and J. Edgar Trevor. Here's a shot of J. Trevor Edmund saying, "We made it on time and we made it on budget." That's pretty cool. And I was really criticizing him and his casting, but just like looking at him here, like looking at this picture of him here, he was perfect for the role. He captures the teen angst. I guess you know what it is. He just goes over the top with some of the sensitivity stuff in certain scenes, but he was good for this movie, man. I'd love to pick his brain sometime on camera. I really would. He really he crushes it, man. He does. He does. And here is Sarah. What's her name? Sarah Douglas. Right. Here's Sarah Douglas getting attacked by a barrel zombie, as they call him, at the very end. And that is super easy right there, right? You just have her they see at the end, they call it the grisly end at the hands of a trioxin barrel zombie. And this was made by Trimark Pictures. We talked about Trimark Pictures and how great it was. We saw the thing there. Okay, let's cover it up. Stupid censors. Here, let's just do a quick. Woo! Okay, you saw it. It's awesome, man. The best zombie there ever was. You know what? I disagree. I disagree with you, Rue. The best looking zombie in the movie is this right here. But yeah, I know what you mean. But she's the best. She's the best. Come on, to complete Steve Johnson's Julie zombie makeup, over 100 individual prosthetics would be applied to Clark before filming. And I believe the first time they did this, it took hours and hours and hours. And then the second time they did it, they figured out ways to do it faster and faster. And that's typically what happens on, movies where there's a lot of heavy makeup effects. The first time they do the makeup, it takes forever. But once they figure out the workflow, they figure out how to make it more mechanical, how to work it better. The makeups can go faster and faster. Rue agrees with me here. He says, yeah, right. She is a hot zombie. She is, man. She's the cat's meow. And that's her in her full, oh my God, just like 90s gothic hotness, man, with like the full zombie, like S&M thing. It really is. It's such a fusion of Romeo and Juliet and zombies with BDSM and body horror. It has everything. Brian Usna really is a master of body horror. He truly is. So yeah, 100 prosthetics had to be applied every time they shot. So here's the barrel zombie. Ugh. And it just doesn't work. Brian Usna says, although I was aware of Day of the Dead's Bub character, it was the bride in Bride of Reanimator that was my personal inspiration for Julie in Return of the Living Dead Part 3. That makes sense, man, because Bub is really, first of all, the bride in Bride of Reanimator, she is a ginormous step up from what Bub is. And Julie is not too far off, especially at the end of Bride of Reanimator. It's kind of grisly what happens to the bride. She comes to life. Herbert West looks at her, and this is where, I once argued with not argued, but debated with Graham Skipper, who plays Herbert West on the stage. And we were talking about what makes Herbert West tick. And he said he thought that Herbert West came from a more benevolent place. Me personally, I think Herbert West, he may want to, do this for all of mankind and get the credit and the acclaim and save people from death and yada, yada, yada. But deep down inside, I think the core of and I would love to ask Jeffrey Combs this, and I wish I had a chance to talk to him and about it. I did get to meet him recently, and I didn't think to ask him. I was stunned when I met him. I froze up. I couldn't talk. I literally couldn't say anything. I was that starstruck. I don't get starstruck very often, but I was starstruck by meeting Jeffrey Combs. It was a big deal to me. It's amazing how a B character movie actor like Jeffrey Combs could make me seize up, but I could I don't know. It's just interesting how that works with stardom and fame. But what was I talking about? Oh, about Herbert West, the core of Herbert West's character in Reanimator. And trust me, I'm going to get back to this. It'll all circle around. Herbert West, his fascination comes from like, it's like a schoolboy. I want to pull the wings off of a fly or put an ant under a microscope and watch the rays of the sun burn it to death sort of fascination. It's a cruel obsession to do this dark experiment over and over again, like a boy who discovers his junk and starts to self pleasure in his room over and over again, like this bizarre, I don't want to say the word out loud, the master debating sort of situation where Herbert West is not, it's, you know what it is, it's a fetish. Herbert West bringing things back to life from the dead, or bringing things back from the dead, it's a fetish. He just likes to do the experiment. He cares nothing for the welfare of the things that he brings back from the dead. It's just about doing the experiment and refining it and doing the research. And in that way, he's kind of a sociopath. And I think it ultimately comes to a head in Bride of the Reanimator, where he literally creates life. And upon creating the life, and this is also the core of the Victor Frankenstein character, and it was so brilliant of Brian Usna to sort of bring fuse those two things. We're going to do Bride because, you know, H.P. Lovecraft based Reanimator is him trying to tell Frankenstein and the story of Frankenstein in a completely different way. So West is Victor Frankenstein, and much like Victor Frankenstein rejects his monstrous creation, Herbert West too sort of immediately loses interest the moment that he does it. He brings the bride to life, and she's confused and like disoriented, and he kind of goes, I made you, I created you, and that's all he cares about. You know, it's about inflating his ego through the fetish of doing this dark experiment, and he doesn't care anything for her. And when she realizes that she's this like horrific, monstrous creation, she says, "You don't want me, then what do you want?" And then she proceeds to rip herself to pieces. And that essence is totally in Julie. You know, Kurt brings, you know, it's like he's transfused Reanimator into Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Kurt brings Julie back to life because he loves her. And then once he sees what she really is, his love is tested because he sees her eating brains, and all of a sudden their love is tested in the sense of like, could he love her even if she was this brain-eating, decomposing zombie? And at first he's shocked and he throws up and he says, "I don't want you," or like, "How could you do that?" Blah, 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 blah. He struggles with what he's done and what she's become. And her ultimate reaction is much like the bride in Bride of Reanimator. She throws herself off of the LA bridge and tries to kill herself. But as we know, she can't die. So what I want to do real quick, because I was reminded, I want to show you. So this is what I wrote in my Letterboxd review. I feel like we have to go here for a second and take a look at this before we continue on with Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Just give me 1 second while I pull it up. Come on. See here, Return of the Living Dead Part 3. All right. Here, let's share our, we can't really share our screen. I'm just going to have to read this. Oh, you know what I can do, actually? Let's do this. How about, let's see if this works. Where is my review? I want my review of Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Where's my review? Here. Logged. Let's see if this brings me to it here. Here we go. There it is. Okay. So here, I'm gonna read this to you the best I can. Sorry for the glare. Let's see what happens when I tilt it. As much as I love Return of the Living Dead, I love this equally, but for different reasons. And with every viewing, the seams become easier and easier to notice. I'm referring to watching it on Blu-ray. The VHS to Blu-ray progression doesn't help either. But when I first saw it on VHS at 14 or 15 years old, from music plus movies, horror section, RIP. I talked about this. It gutted me. I sat there with my jaw hanging to the ground as the credits rolled in pure disbelief that a movie could end like that. I was destroyed as I was embarrassed that I could feel the finality of death from a movie that was the third in what was technically a spin-off series called Return of the Living Dead. How could the third entry to any franchise have such an impact? I think it is the single biggest, and I think that that is the single biggest blemish that causes such polarization amongst monster kids. It should be just known as Kurt and Julie. It easily stands on its own. So I'm saying the fact that it's called Return of the Living Dead Part 3 really sort of hurts it a little bit, or is a bit of a blemish. Obviously, there's a lot of Romeo and Juliet stuff in here. A phenomenal starting point for a fresh direction after a follow-up serving of ham and cheese, and I'm referring to Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Underneath the layer of star-crossed lovers separated by life and death, there's a second layer that imprints vampiric addiction to a zombie setting. So what they're doing is they're applying the vampiric struggle of craving blood and putting it instead in a zombie setting with needing brains. And it sort of destroys the rules a bit in the process. In the first film, it is the pain of being dead that drives them to consume. In this one, it is reversed. Being in pain makes the hunger go away. And it works as a fantastic springboard for themes of self-destruction in the form of mutilation and pseudo-BSM. That's true. So even though they go in the complete opposite direction and contradict themselves, it creates a springboard for the themes that they explore of, people who mutilate themselves and BDSM. Addiction, pulling someone and everyone around them closer to death than life. No, sorry, these sentences are written weird. It's my fault. Addiction, pulling someone and everyone around them closer to death than life. So Julie is closer to death than life, and she pulls Kurt and everything else that she comes in contact with her closer to death than life, to the brink where, Kurt loses his life as a result. And it's funny, he doesn't lose his life because of her. He loses his life because of his choices of bringing her back. And despite their adolescent sophomoric pipe dream fantasies, these choices find our doomed lovers down in the sewers, so close to a literal ladder that leads back to a surface if Julie can just hold it together as Kurt continues to enable her behavior because of his own self-centered fears. So to break that down, because that was a very pregnant sentence, they have these adolescent sophomoric pipe dream fantasies. They want to make it to Seattle. He's going to get a gig in a band. She's going to watch him play all night and just party, even though she's a decomposing zombie that eats brains. It's just like, it's a pipe dream, man. And it's sophomoric. There's nothing to, it's like what a teenager would want. A teenager, wants to just run away and join the circus, that sort of thing. The choices that they make, or these choices that find our doomed lovers down in the sewers, meaning that with every choice that they make, progressively leads them literally down into the gutter. In the same way that addiction might bring you to the gutter, Julie brings Kurt down into the gutter with her because of her addiction to brains. And at the very end, as they're barricading themselves in from the literal zombie element that's coming to consume Kurt, it's not going to harm Julie, Kurt, and the Riverman, there's a ladder that leads up to the light, like literally like a ladder. If you think about it from a drug addict perspective, they need of clawing your way back up to the surface, of clawing your way to the light. And there's light that shoots down from the manhole that they need to crawl up to escape utter defeat. So close to a literal ladder that it leads back to the surface. If Julie can just hold it together, and Julie can't hold it together, she can't control her urges, and Kurt continues to enable her behavior because of his own self-centered fears. Kurt's self-centered fears that he'll be alone and that he'll lose his love. So he enables her to do the things that prevent them from crawling back to the surface. And then finally, it takes the death of their newest ally, the Riverman, for Kurt to finally have a moment of clarity to recognize just how crazy that all of this is. And in that, we reach another layer that goes hand in hand with addiction, codependency. So Kurt is codependent with Julie because of his fear of being alone, and he enables her addictive brain-eating behavior because he doesn't want to be alone, because he wants to make things work with Julie. Brian Usna wrote a treatment for a fourth entry called Hail Mary. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And we are given a taste of the synopsis in a fantastic and sprawling tome that is a complete history of Return of the Living Dead. I hope the full treatment sees the light of day in the future. I would love to read it or have Brian and John Penny team up again. As much as I love Return of the Living Dead, I love this equally, but for different reasons. And with I repeated that. It looks like I copy pasted it twice. So there you have it, folks. So that was, thanks for sticking around for that. But that's my full breakdown, man. That's my full breakdown about what this movie is about, why it's special, why I appreciate it so freaking much, man. I love this film. I really, really do. Here is a shot of the Riverman done up in his torturous exoskeleton. Parody is balanced by having a script with comedic elements, getting laughs from the audience before the horror kicks in. After it does, the film has to play it straight, so the audience stays with the drama. I would say that's not what happens. Maybe that's what happens in Return of the Living Dead 1, but not Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Above, Jamaican-born Basil Wallace in a Timothy Ralston-designed exoskeleton. So this exoskeleton weighed nearly 75 pounds. And then here, this is the rogues gallery of zombies, of trioxin barrel zombies. And these were all designed by the same guy, Wayne Toth. So like I said, everybody was given things to do, in special effects. They had 5 special effects departments rolling deep. Got to roll deep. So this is interesting. So we were looking at the cover before the poster art. This is the image that I guess was used. Let's see what this says. The most iconic image of Melinda Clarke as Julie, which featured on movie posters, video cassettes, DVD covers, and magazines. So that's the actual still that was taken. And then what they did was, they, through Photoshop magic and processing magic, they turned it into, they went from this to that. So it's the exact same image. And they cropped out the background and put this background behind her. And I love it. I love this tree branch against the red with the full moon. It's just we talked about this image already, but it's just so excellent. But that's the original image. And it looks like it's her in the sewer. That's her in the sewer that they took that image from. And it just works, man. It's such a great, just a great image. Thomas C. Rannon says, there's nothing worse than a Living Dead picture without the rotting walking dead. Jim Himmel says, I watched it recently after many years. It is still fun with great effects, and I'm proud to have been a part of the return legacy. Me too, man. I'm glad you were too. This is musician and movie heavy Mike Moroff as Santos with Pia Reyes as Alicia. So I didn't realize he's a musician as well. But yeah, you see him in a bunch of stuff. He's a character actor. He's in a ton of jazz. I feel like you see him in stuff. And there's Basil Wallace. He's about to help Kurt and Julie. Brian Usna says, it surprised me when I have been asked by interviewers about turning away from comedy in the film. See, what kills me is I really wish I could just literally read the text, the entire section, top to bottom, just talking about this. J. Trevor. Why do I always pronounce his name wrong? J. Trevor Edmond says, I was so nervous about how the film was going to be perceived. I have heard from a couple people that it came together very well. And the feedback, and that was the feedback I got prior to seeing it. Then when I finally saw it, I had a private screening, and it was just me and my girlfriend, and I was subjective in viewing it. And I had to ask her before getting my own opinion, what did you think? And she had mostly positive things to say. And then we actually went around to the premiere. I heard about I heard about all this press that was going to be brought in, and it was the day of the premiere, and it was the day when the Malibu fire started in 1993, and literally one press outlet showed up. Damn, out of the 20 or 30 that were originally planned. So literally nobody showed up for my first big premiere. I was thinking to myself, straight to video, no one's ever going to be talking about this. No one's ever going to be seeing this movie. And here we are almost 20 years later, and you're writing a book about it. Pretty cool. So here's some more effects shots. There is the makeup process that they're putting it on. Oh no, this is a head actually. So this is a fake head. Behind the scenes footage of test makeup busts of Julie Walker in Steve Johnson's workshop. So this is how Steve Johnson workshopped the makeup that they were going to use in Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Pretty cool. I think we're near the end. We're just going to finish this up here. Brian Usna says, it didn't occur to me that it might alienate the fans, I guess, because I'm a fan myself, and the direction we were going in didn't alienate me. Yeah, man. I agree. So there is the cameo by Anthony Hickox, makeup effects on Anthony Hickox, director of Hellraiser 3 and Warlock the Armageddon. I didn't know he did Warlock. And below, this is the prototype of the exoskeleton to be worn by Basil Wallace. The suit was so uncomfortable and heavy that it left bruises on Wallace's body. And here you go. Here's the thing about Return of the Living Dead Part 4. So this was Brian Usna's original idea for Return of the Living Dead Part 4. And it's a shame that he and John Penny couldn't re-team up and make this the Part 4, and that we got the Part 4 that we got, because I would kill to read the full 3-page treatment. And I'm so grateful that Brian, even if I had to ask Brian Usna one question, it would be about this treatment. And I wish that he would just, if he's never going to make it, then I wish we could just have it online and read about it, or that it would get turned into a comic book. That would be the ideal thing, I think. Just turn it into a comic book. Don't even bother making it into a film. Have someone license it and do a story about it. Maybe Brian Usna would be agreeable to such a thing. Who knows? Brian Usna. At one point, for some reason, I thought there was interest in making another sequel, and I thought of Hail Mary. When I read this, my jaw dropped open, because I was going, there was going to be a follow-up? How do you do a follow-up with the ending like Return of the Living Dead 3? He goes, I thought of Hail Mary. I can't remember too many specifics. Damn you, Brian. But I do know that I have a 3-page outline somewhere in my files. Kills me. It kills me. The setup had something to do with runaway kids in an underground goth club in Hollywood who hear about the now mythic romantic story of Kurt and Julie, and the rumor of a group of disaffected teens living behind the barriers of the city, which the military has sealed off to contain the rampaging Living Dead pandemic. So what happens at the end of Return of the Living Dead 3 is that maybe it erupts into a full-scale pandemic that leaks out of that facility. People live in closed-off cities. It's the future. Kids hanging, a group of disaffected kids hanging out behind the barriers of the city. They're outside of the barriers of the city. And there's underground golf clubs in Hollywood. And then here, check this out. Ready? Once inside the apocalyptic downtown, they find the group headed by a girl called Hail Mary, who's cruel, merciless, and sexy, who has learned to live with the pain and the hunger of being dead. How cool is that, man? That captures my imagination to no end. Like, oh my God. The group is headed by a girl called Hail Mary, who's cruel, merciless, and sexy, and who has learned to live with the pain and the hunger of being dead. So she's learned to live as a zombie, and that just opens things up for so much more stuff. And then we get this garbage instead. Garbage. but we'll save that for the what I think is going to be probably the final chapter of our sprawling saga covering the complete history of Return of the Living Dead. But I'm not looking forward to it. Look at the junky posters. Just junk. It looks like a fifth grader photoshopped these online. These look like fake posters. Disgusting. I'm so disgusted by this. All right, listen, it's 2:04 and I need to wake up my daughter from her afternoon nap to give her lunch. Thank you again for joining us. If you like this stuff, please subscribe, please like, please leave a comment. Please let the ads play all the way through if you get hit with an ad. That so helps me. You don't even know how that helps me. So again, thank you so much. Until next time, this is your host, Jeff of the Jeff Show, saying peace and hair grease.